We're missing somebody this week.
Yeah, BB Nate probably shouldn't be talking after oral surgery. He's a bit sleepy and swollen.
And swollen. But we didn't get any great video of him.
No, he was pretty underwhelming in that regard.
But he'll be back next week to talk all about the long Halloween. Yeah.
Yeah, spoiler alert, he really loved it. But it's Batman, so, what do you expect?
It was good. What I saw before I fell asleep after my car accident. We'll talk about that in a minute. So are you going to let me tell another joke this week?
Only if it's really good.
Well, they're all really good. Are they? Better than yours. Yeah. Anyway, all right, here we go. Why does Batman wear a mask?
I don't know. Why does Batman wear a mask?
Because the citizens of Gotham aren't morons like those idiots over in Metropolis.
All right, that's true. That's true. Although, I did see this video of Henry Cavill standing on the street completely like normal, and people walk right past him.
It's crazy. Yeah, we'll start the show after these ads specifically chosen for you by Cad Bane's droid Todo 360. Is that how it's pronounced?
Yes, let's go.
We're going to go with that. Mm-hmm. This is Tatooine Sons.
Shoot Star Wars, Marvel, DC.
All right, where are we going with?
G.I. Joe fans.
G.I. Joe. Is that because of the Snake Eyes trailer?
Right, yeah. It's looking pretty fun. I'm excited for it.
We'll throw up a Snake Eyes shirt on the page.
All right, sounds good. Yeah. Make sure to go to our TeePublic store. The link is in the show notes, and you can browse all the cool stuff. We got t-shirts, mugs, all sorts of things. Now, apparently, a Snake Eyes.
Well, we will.
T-shirt in a minute, yeah. Go ahead and look around there and get yourself a t-shirt. What's cool is all of
other stuff.
And
we don't have coasters. We should have coasters. They don't do coasters. But
TeePublic doesn't do coasters?
Nobody even knows how to use a coaster.
That and pop sockets. Anyway. Yeah. Go ahead and browse around in there and get something. What's cool is if you use our link, all of the proceeds will go to help a child in need through One Child. So you get yourself really cool pop culture merch, and you get to help a kid at the same time.
That's awesome.
It's true. All of it.
What is the name of the porg on the Millennium Falcon?
Force is strong in my family.
What do you think his name is? It's a big moment.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Maybe Turbis?
Do or do not. There is no try.
Turbis? Pablo, if you're listening to this live stream, that porg's name is now Turbis. It's a good Star Wars name.
We're not done yet.
These guys recorded an awesome podcast called Tatooine Sons. Everybody was
What was he like when he was coming out of the...
Just kind of like slow and tired, but not like all loopy and funny.
So it wasn't one of those $10,000 videos?
No, it was pretty disappointing. He was still just regular.
Could he faked it?
No, he was just like normal, dry Nathan the whole time. Just like, yeah, I'm fine.
Anyway, we'll explain. Welcome to Tatooine Sons, a pop culture podcast. We believe that pop culture is the mythology of this generation and that there is a story written on our souls and that these myths speak to that story. And that's why we talk about Star Wars and Marvel and DC and Lord of the Rings and apparently G.I. Joe, Snake Eyes.
G.I. Joe.
We may talk about that. You guys were excited about that trailer.
Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah. I saw it today. It was okay. We talk about a lot of other things. I'm David. I'm the dad.
Hi, Dad.
Normally, I'm joined by both of my amazing sons, but this week I'm just joined by...
You're okay.
My oldest amazing son. Sam, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
That's good. What are you going to talk about? Obviously, Loki.
Mid-season finale.
It's kind of weird in your 6 episodes to call anything mid-season.
Yeah, that's true.
We did it with Falcon and Winter Soldier, so we'll do it with
What are you talking about this week?
Well, I'm talking about the Bad Batch. And so
we're
going to hold off on Batman the Long Halloween part 1 conversation, and we're going to put a pin in it and come back to it next episode because BB Nate had his wisdom teeth taken out yesterday.
Yeah.
He had 4 of them. They were impacted. It was pretty ugly. Yeah. He's doing okay.
Surgery went fine, yeah.
But... he's not happy about it. His face is swollen like
my
crazy.
gosh, looks like a chipmunk.
It's horrible.
It's pretty bad.
So, in addition to his still recovering from his neck trauma that he's laying there with his face swollen and eating mashed potatoes and ice cream
ice
and
packs
Jell-O.
like taped on him. We said he looks like Jacob Marley from Christmas Carol. It's pretty bad,
but he's doing okay. So, if you can keep him in your thoughts and prayers, that would be awesome. We would appreciate that. I had an interesting end of the day.
That's one way to put it.
Yesterday. The way I described it on Facebook was I met this really sweet old lady.
You did.
She just moved to Alabama moved to Alabama 23 years ago from
23
years ago from northern Mississippi. She's been married to the same man for 47 years.
Wow. That's a long time.
They got married when he was 18 and she was 16.
I didn't even know that was legal.
It was. They've got one daughter. The daughter works down at the wharf at the marina down there. Okay. She runs the marina.
Oh, wow.
Down there. They've got 2 grandsons.
That's nice.
One's in the Navy. And the other one's lives in Gulf Shores.
Oh, okay.
With it. She's holding a yard sale tomorrow.
Oh, so today you mean?
No, tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, this comes out today.
Yes.
So are we going to say we
Yes.
release this on Friday, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she comes out she's having a yard sale on Saturday. She goes to a nice little Baptist church that she said preaches the word and still sings hymns.
Oh,
that's the way she described it.
It's good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what else? Oh, she rides her bicycle every morning.
Oh, I don't even
and she
do
picks
that.
up cans and stuff and then takes it to the recycling center.
She does realize World War II's over.
No,
right?
she goes and she takes it to the recycling center and they give her money and she gives it to the missions program at her church.
Oh, that's sweet.
She gave him $13 last week.
Oh,
It was awesome. The reason I know all of this is because it took an hour for the police to arrive after she backed into my Mustang. Yeah, I'm sitting there at a stoplight in sort of Mayberry, so downtown Foley. I'm trying to describe it for people that haven't been there, like Old Town Foley.
Right.
So think Mayberry in Andy Griffith's show. And I'm making a left-hand turn and she's across the street at the antique shop and she's trying to avoid a curb as she backs up and she avoided the curb and hit my driver's side door.
Got a nice
big
shot.
dent.
Oh, I don't even think you can call it a dent.
It's
that is
damaged.
That you can barely get the door open. It looks like something from Tommy Boy.
So I'll be getting a new paint job on that car and a lot of work done in the next couple of months. I haven't ever thought about that. I mean, it depends on if they're probably not going to want to do more than just what they have to repair. So
yeah.
So we'll probably keep it the same color. We'll see. Anyway, so that was my day yesterday.
Oh, fun.
Anyway, but you guys had a fun time on Wednesday night, sort of. Weird. It was different.
Yeah.
You guys were going to Pensacola to the theater to go to a double feature of A Quiet Place and A Quiet Place 2, right? For the Return to the Cinema Week, the big thing that AMC and Regal, all of them are doing it.
Right.
This week. And they give you this massive thing of popcorn. You guys are all
We got it for free with our A-list.
Yeah. So you guys were going in, you're sitting there in the theater. It's getting ready to start A Quiet Place. And?
Yes. It starts rolling and we're seeing like the production companies and stuff roll, and we're hearing the noise, and Nate and I are kind of like, I don't know if this is right. And then the first scene opens up with a car driving through the middle of town. And we're like, this is the second movie. They're playing the wrong one. Yeah. So Nathan goes to talk to people and try and figure out what the heck's going on. And they're like, oh yeah, we'll deal with it. Long story short, 45 minutes into the hour and a half long movie, they decide to pause it and they make an announcement. They're like, hey, so we didn't actually have the first movie processed yet. Our system's really slow. So we're starting that now. We have to do it in another theater. You guys can either wait or we can keep watching this and then you can move theaters and stuff. So we're like, okay, so we just finished the second movie. Poor Nathan missed the entire first half because he was trying to get people to, do their jobs. And after that, we went and watched the first movie after, which, kind of defeated the purpose because there were a lot of people who hadn't seen the first movie and then ended up watching the second movie first. It was not ideal. That
was sort of a Return to the Cinema Week fail.
Yeah, but Nathan was excited because he had never seen the first movie in theater, and he said it was real intense. And overall, it was still a lot of fun. So, and we got free chicken strips out of it.
You got free dinner out of it. I'm not sure he'll be up to it. I'm sort of hoping that maybe Sunday afternoon we can go see F9. We'll watch the 30-minute recap, and then we'll watch the Jurassic World stuff and see. I mean, it'd be fun to go to a movie. Yeah. Maybe he'll be up to it. He loves popcorn. I'm not sure how
he can't have it yet.
Yeah, it'll be a couple. That's why I'm saying Sunday. He may be able
It has to be like a week.
Really?
Yeah, because the kernels can get in there.
Oh, that sucks. I know. Maybe we won't go to a movie then. All right. Well, this week's Bad Batch. It confirms some things that we've been saying for several weeks now. But it also blew a hole through a big prediction that we made last week. Let's figure out what this means for our little friend Omega and the bounty hunters who are after her.
Loki religions and ancient weapons are no match for a good blaster at your side, kid.
Rebellions are built on hope.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force.
If you live long enough, you see the same eyes in different people.
Yes. I think that when they saw those green tubes, it was going to be Snoke in there, maybe.
I still think it's Snoke in there.
Okay.
I mean, they could be like the precursors, like Snoke Generation 1.
Oh,
they were tall. They looked just kind of like
him, except
more like
for the
Kaminoans.
Yeah,
I don't know. That was weird.
Yeah, that was a whole weird scene. Anyway,
yeah. This is weird. I'm just going to stop and acknowledge how weird it is having this conversation.
This is the first time we've ever done this
without Nathan.
Yeah,
it's like Tatooine Sun.
Yeah, it doesn't
work.
No,
you know, it just doesn't work without BB-8.
It's not the magic.
So anyway, well, it's okay. You and I have fun.
Yeah, we'll do our best.
What were your thoughts on the Bad Batch this episode? What was it called? Bounty Lost. What were your thoughts on it?
It was good, but I honestly wasn't expecting them to, well, spoilers here, but to resolve the whole Omega hostage storyline so quickly. I thought that was going to be like the remainder of the series. So I'm curious as to why they brought that in just to get rid of it an episode later. But overall, it was good.
Yeah, that's a really good point. You know, one of the things that was criticized about these last several episodes was how much it seems to be mirroring The Mandalorian. And so if the rest of the season was tied to them getting a crew together and finding Omega and then going after, then it would have been mirroring it even more.
Right. Yeah.
And so maybe they used it. It is interesting. You know, I'm curious to see how it all ties together with the bounty hunters. We'll definitely talk about that. I liked the episode. Mm-hmm. I thought that this was, I don't know. There was watching it. I felt more connected to this episode than I have in a long time because I was emotionally invested in them getting Omega back. And so while watching the episode, I was really intense as far as focusing on it and wanting to.
There was an objective, a real mission they had to accomplish, some real weight to what they were doing.
And we found out the information, you know, about Omega and what was going on with her. And so that tied it in. So looking back on the episode, you know, you and I were talking before we started recording. It kind of felt this way with Loki too. You said it, but with this episode, it kind of feels like, I mean, there were some good things that we learned from it, but I'm not sure that it was a
substantial.
Well, things were developed. I'm never going to call a Star Wars episode a filler episode.
I never thought that.
But it felt like it was less consequential.
That's a good
going forward. With it.
The key takeaway from this was the bounty hunters and they got Omega back. That was really kind of.
I mean, and we'll address that in a little bit. But it did feel like, you know, okay, so now we're kind of back where we started is the way it feels. But having said that, watching the episode, I was really connected to what was going on in the story. I loved the episode. It was a lot of fun. What did you think? You know, everybody that listens to this show that knows you knows that Boba Fett's been your guy. He was your guy before we started recording a podcast. I'm looking right now at a picture on the wall of you with braces, standing next to Jeremy Bullock at Star Wars Celebration 17, holding your Boba Fett backpack with his autograph on it. You are a true believer in Boba Fett.
And before Mandalorian and
all of that. Okay. So what was it like for them to actually reference him and you get that little bit of nugget? He's called Alpha, which makes total sense.
Right.
Alpha
now
and
I
Omega.
get that. That's cool.
Exactly. He's called Alpha in this. And Omega is in a lot of ways
sister,
a mirror.
Yeah.
I mean, it was weird because Tech is just being Tech, right? They're flying and he's explaining some stuff, and all of a sudden he just drops this knowledge bomb without any warning, declaring that Omega was just like Boba Fett. She's a first generation clone of Jango.
Mm-hmm.
She has no alterations whatsoever. She's basically like, when you say the sister or a female equivalent of Boba Fett, which we've been talking about, and other people have suggested this for several episodes, several weeks, that this is the possibility. But now that they've dropped that name, how do you think that Boba Fett's going to factor into the future of this series?
I don't know. I mean, honestly, we had mentioned them bringing in that deleted scene from season, what was it? The old Boba Fett deleted scene or whatever.
Right.
And as I was watching this episode, I thought if they're going to bring it in, it's going to be here. And, if you had seen the episode, that just didn't happen. So I'm not sure how he's going to factor in because they've got Omega back. So I'm not sure why Boba would need to show up. Granted, they did mention that there are multiple bounty hunters after Omega right now, not just Cad and Fennec.
Yeah, there's a bounty out on her,
right,
which puts her in that same level of category
as the child.
Right? When the Bounty Hunter Guild basically put that out to anybody that could get the child at that point,
right? So maybe we do see him. He is a bounty hunter at this point. He's running like a small crew at the moment, isn't he? To an extent.
I can't remember what they're called. I knew we talked about it a few episodes ago. But.
Right. So he very well could show up in that regard, but I thought if anywhere it was going to be this episode. So would I like to see him? Absolutely. But I'm not going to hold my breath.
Not feeling a lot of hope for it?
No.
Alpha is the first letter in the Greek alphabet.
Omega is the last.
Omega is the last letter in the Greek alphabet. For those of us that are biblical, scholars or readers of the Bible, even, that verse that idea should be familiar. Christ calls himself the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last. But the idea behind that is that idea of first and last, right? Which would imply, it could imply that Boba Fett was the first of these first generation clones that are unaltered, and Omega is the last. But there could be some others in between. Do you think there's a possibility that there are other clones out there that are like Boba Fett and Omega?
I don't think so, because if that were the case, they would be hunting them too. They wouldn't be dumping so many resources into finding Omega. They were trying to find Boba, but he's been too elusive, and he's just evaded capture at this point. They have no idea where he is. They have a lead on Omega, and she's still fairly accessible, so that's why they're hunting her. I feel like if there were other unaltered clones like those two, they would be maybe focusing on them a little bit more, not so heavy on Omega.
Yeah. It'll be fun.
I kind of like the clone dyad vibe going on too.
So together their powers will be united.
I thought we were real proponents of the she's slightly force sensitive thing. I think that's out the window now that we know she's just an unaltered clone.
Well, I think that there's a possibility that she's the last of these unaltered clones that have been made, Alpha being Boba Fett, and maybe they did additional things to in the cloning of her, not altering her as far as like put restrictor inhibitor chips and more advancement, advancement, making her more docile, all that kind of stuff that they do with clones. But maybe they did some other things because you can't talk Star Wars and cloning at this point in the period following the Rise of Skywalker, knowing that the Rise of Skywalker is out there and that there was this mission by Palpatine to create clones of himself. You can't not bring up the possibility that he was working on trying to get some type of a force sensitive clone. Okay. And so, I think that that's a possibility. Do you think now that we know that there is this connection between Boba Fett and Omega that we could see, we don't know what happens to Omega in the future.
No.
Could we see a 30-something-year-old Omega showing up in the book of Boba Fett at some point in the future? Live action?
Yeah, I mean, she could have very well, after this series, just become a bounty hunter herself or something like that. or some clandestine agent, and she's just been kind of roaming the galaxy doing her thing. And when maybe Boba's met her before, and when he needs her, she shows up, or he calls her, or she finds out who he is and tracks him down and stuff. I think that could be a really interesting storyline and point to bring up.
I think it would be cool to see that crossover take place. And I think that what we want now as Star Wars fans in this new era of Star Wars, when the films, it feels like, just before we started recording, they announced the writer that's going to be working with Patty Jenkins on Rogue Squadron. Matthew Robinson did. He's doing the new Little Shop of Horrors movie. He's done a couple of other things. Nothing I've watched, so I really don't have any commentary on that. But it feels like they've sort of separated off the films and said the films are going to be over here and they're going to be their own thing. And then you've got TV, and that could, when I say TV, I mean live action, animation, all of that. That's its own playground. It's its own sandbox.
Right.
And so I think we've come to expect now that we've seen Ahsoka transition from animation to live action. We've seen some of these Fennec Shand transition from live action to animation. We're seeing some of that with Saw Gerrera now. We're going to be seeing Kenobi. Just some of these things happening. Right. That we kind of have gotten to the point where we're going to expect that to happen at some point in the future.
And bringing Omega in, especially into, well, maybe not necessarily Book of Boba Fett, but also maybe even the Mandalorian storyline in itself could be interesting. The whole idea is what really makes you a Mandalorian, right? Bo-Katan doesn't think Boba's a true Mandalorian, but he says he is. So maybe they could continue that storyline with Omega and whether she's really could be considered a Mandalorian and such.
That's a really good point. And then, of course, Din Djarin is not really considered a Mandalorian by that because of the religious choices that everyone has made in that. That's
so they could use that as an interesting plot point.
Let's move to the Kaminoans. That was interesting. This episode, immediately after we learned who Omega really is, it's revealed what the Kaminoans want her for. And I don't think that we're surprised by that, but what we got confirmation that it just isn't good. Lama Su really wants her genetic blueprint, and that's all he wants her for. She's property. He's ready to discard her once he gets her genetic material. Kill her is basically what he says, which is pretty dark again for animation on that. And then you have Nala Se. She seems to have a very different agenda. And so Lama Su won't let her go get Omega from Cad Bane. He sends Taun We, which is really fun because we haven't seen Taun We since Attack of the Clones.
Nala Se was the same character because I don't remember their names. So I thought that was that character, but it was cool to see her back.
For about a hot minute with this. She's barely even in this episode before we find her laying on the ground on this planet that they're sent to pick up Omega. She's been killed by Fennec Shand at this point. We know what Lama Su's goal is. We know what he's trying to get Omega for. What do you think Nala Se wants with Omega?
I think Nala Se is aligned with Lama Su's agenda. Because
I totally disagree because Nala Se is the one who let her escape with the Bad Batch in the first place. Lama Su won't.
I'm sorry.
I know you're getting confused again.
Yep. Taun We. I was thinking Taun We was aligned with.
Okay. Lama Su. Those are our two big Kaminoans left in the story after they killed off Taun We.
Okay. Nala Se is the good one. Their names are so confusing.
Well, is she good or not? Okay. What do you think the agenda is?
I think she kind of thinks of Omega as quote unquote child, her daughter to an extent in a twisted way. I think she does want her, for science and stuff, but she's got more of a connection with her. She wants to see her grow, and become, a valuable asset, not just, used for her genetic material and then killed off. It may not be entirely nice, but, we did see her make a pretty good move towards the end, I guess. She was like, as long as she's safe, then it's fine.
In the conversation with Fennec Shand.
Right. So
which was a big revelation because obviously we alluded to it when we talked about Taun We being killed by Fennec Shand, but now we know that Fennec Shand was not sent by the Kaminoans as a entity.
Right.
Fennec Shand was sent by Lama Su to basically rescue the others on this. So let's go back to Boba Fett. Does this allow for Boba Fett to bring into the story at this point? Are these other bounty hunters that are out there, are they being commissioned, all of them, to bring him back to Camino? I can't pronounce anything today. To Camino, or are there multiple bounty hunters out there with multiple agendas going on?
There's probably the two parties, Fennec Shand and the others. I think Fennec Shand is alone in her mission. I think Nala Se has just hired Fennec Shand to protect Omega. That's it. And Lama Su hired a whole bunch of bounty hunters or put a bounty out for Omega. So if we see any other bounty hunters, chances are they are trying to take Omega back to Camino. I did it. Camino.
Camino.
Right. Camino. Yeah. But I think it's just Fennec.
What we can be assured of is that Lama Su did not hire Boba Fett to go get, because he wants that genetic. He would go for that genetic material too, is what it seemed to be implied with this. So if we do see Boba Fett in here, it's not as a bounty hunter hired to bring Omega back to Camino. It is another party interested in this. I wonder if in the process of this bounty hunter request that's out there, this bounty that's been put out,
saw it.
He finds out about it. He connects it with who Omega is, and he's coming into the story at some point
as its own third party
to rescue Omega.
Right. Okay.
With that, because I know we've talked about it on the show, but if you're just, if you haven't listened to all the episodes before of our breakdown of the Bad Batch, the timeline is right for Boba Fett to have known Omega, to have grown up with Omega. It's only been 3 years. He was like 11 or 12 years old or something like that. He's 13, I think is what people are suggesting now. She's 11.
Right. Yeah. She's not.
They know each other.
Right.
They grew up together on Camino, and genetically they're identical, and they could be considered brother and sister in some ways. I can definitely see Boba Fett growing a conscience in this moment, and going after that. And maybe this something happens with Fennec Shand that makes him feel indebted to her, which is why he saves her life on Tatooine.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
With that, we got to talk about Cad Bane. Let's talk about him in general before we talk about the big revelation in this. I'm not even sure if you picked up on this revelation, so this should be fun. Don't look at the notes. It did feel like, they were really excited to bring Cad Bane back, and then they brought him back for almost nothing.
Right. Yeah, I thought about that. Like, I was honestly surprised we were going to see him in this episode that much, just because I thought they were saving him for more stuff. And you're right. He did just he was there and he got defeated, and that's that. Which is another reason why I'm surprised they wrapped up this storyline so quickly. So I think you're right. I don't think they wait, 9 years now and bring him back for one episode. They've definitely got more planned for him. Maybe it's a Ahsoka Boba Fett thing where he ends up getting his own show or movie or something to that effect, right? They use this to bring him back into the consciousness so they can make something off of it.
It would be really cool for there to be this big confrontation still between Boba Fett and Cad Bane that then translates into a live action version of Cad Bane in the book of Boba Fett.
That would be cool.
That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I like that.
With that CG or whatever. They would have to use CG, don't you think?
No, they can do like prosthetics and stuff.
I think it would be awesome. But we have to talk about the hat. So last week I speculated irresponsibly at this point is what I think, that we were certainly going to get that finished version of the battle between Cad Bane and Boba Fett that was originally planned for season 7 of the Clone Wars, which you talked about earlier. And that it would come before the end of the season. But in this week's episode, there's this moment where Cad Bane removes his hat.
And he's got the metal plate. I saw that.
We get a closer look at him. He's got a metal plate on his head. Now, think about that duel, because I know you just watched it a week ago.
It was just the one time. Yeah.
Okay. Boba Fett gets shot in the helmet. That's where we get the ding.
Right.
But Cad Bane is shot in the head.
Oh, really?
With that. So people are wondering and speculating, does that make that duel, even though it was never finished, canon? And that's already happened in the story at some point. The ding's already there.
Right.
And he's got a plate in his head to correct the damage from being shot by Boba Fett with that. Do you think that battle's already taken place?
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense. I was curious as to the head thing. I didn't remember him getting shot in the head in the video. Otherwise, I probably would have made that connection. But that's a little disappointing, though. I would really... Maybe they'll circle back around to it somehow, but there's no way they make that decision without having thought maybe they'll show us that story.
Well, I mean, it looks to me like they made the decision that they're not going to show us that story. They gave us that moment in this week's episode where he removes the hat because they know how crazy we are as Star Wars fans in this world. And when people see the metal plate, they're immediately going to connect it to what's going to happen, what's happened there. And that answers the question. Okay. That duel already took place. That's how he got that. They may reference it at some point, but I don't think you'll see that actual battle. Do we see Boba Fett and Cad Bane have a confrontation at some point? I think that that's very possible. I'm hoping for it. But at this point, I don't think that we get that being finished off and shown again.
Okay.
Even in a flashback sequence.
All right.
I don't think that we've... Are you disappointed?
Yeah, a little bit. But I understand the choice. It happens. They've got to make story choices as to whether it'll fit or not. If it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. But
yeah. Okay, cool. Well, some key takeaways from this week's episode. From my perspective, there's a lot more happening with Kamino than we previously thought. I want to understand why Lama Su and crud, I did it myself.
Lama Su and Nala Se.
Nala Se, that's it. Lama Su and Nala Se are not on the same page here. I want to figure out what's going on. Is there something internal happening there? I think it's going to be a few more episodes before we see Crosshair again.
That's so disappointing. He's such a cool character.
He was there at the beginning. He's damaged, but it was because it was happening literally immediately following the last episode. It was picking up exactly where it left off with that. And now he's in treatment and they're trying to figure out what to do. It felt like that was reset and we're going to have that sequence where we have a few more episodes without Crosshair again. And now going back to how we started the segment, it feels like we're back at square one again. The Bad Batch, they got their ship. They're away from the bad guys. They've got Omega. Crosshair doesn't know where they're at. Are they going back to Sid on Ord Mantell? Are they going to get back into that?
They mentioned her a little bit in the episode.
They did. Are they going back to her? Or I think it's time. I think it's at this point in the show. This isn't a criticism. This is just where I'm at as a viewer and a fan. I think it's time for the Bad Batch to find their purpose.
Yeah,
I think that we thought the purpose of the season was going to be going after and finding Omega. That isn't the purpose. I'm fine with that. I just want them to have more purpose than going back to Sid's and eating some Mantell mix and doing another mission.
I agree.
I want the story to take on a bigger...
The Mandalorian didn't do bounties the entire series. His story progressed and became more and more impactful.
It did. And it's gonna be different than the Mandalorian going forward, which is exciting.
Right.
I like that, but that's the way it is. So I didn't think that we expected to see the Bad Batch reunited with Omega as quickly as we did after losing her to Cad Bane. Like I said, we thought the second half of the season would be all the twists and turns of Finder, but we're gonna have to wait until next Friday to get more clues on that. So that's all I got to say about that.
The notes in yellow. All right. Episode 3 of Loki is out. We got a lot more information on Lady Loki. I mean, Sylvie. The TVA may not be...
That. She doesn't like that.
Yes. The TVA may not be what it seems, and we may have to lament our duo coming next week.
Nice.
We'll discuss it all in a few.
And that's coming up after these ads specifically chosen to create an illusion so Sylvie can secure the information she needs. This is Tatooine Sons. Well, this is Nate's normal segment to kind of talk about reviews, but he's not here to do it. So I'll take it. It's kind of sad with that. We didn't get any like Nate truth bombs in that last segment.
He usually brings up some crazy cool point.
He does. But we do want you to know that you can give us a review. Maybe you should mention BB Nate in the review as a way of cheering him up and letting him know how much you missed him on the show. There's a single place that you can give us all those reviews. It's podchaser.com. It's so much fun to read your feedback on there. Cam Ray, he did give us the feedback that he promised.
Okay.
So we can, I guess we're all good now. We're not going to be like in this weirdness when we see Black Widow together in a few weeks. With that, Sam, you're going to read that review for us, please?
Yeah. David and his two sons put on one of the best family-friendly pop culture podcasts available. Their episodes are well organized, their discussions are very thoughtful and engaging, and they always leave you feeling more knowledgeable and eager to dive deeper into whatever topics they touched on. There are many podcasts out there, but Tatooine Sons is one that should be at the top of your weekly must-listen list. 6 stars.
Oh, so that's where he was trying to outdo from a certain point of view. He said he was going to do it. He said he was going to. It took longer to write than theirs. They just threw up. They didn't put any thought into it, is what he said. So, no, we appreciated both of you guys doing that. As our way of saying thank you, whenever you give us a review on podchaser.com, we make a donation to One Child in your honor. One Child helps kids that are facing extreme poverty, and you can give us a review, which is cool, right? It helps us out. It helps people find the show. It really does, especially through Podchaser. And then it also helps a child in poverty. And so thank you guys for doing that. And please give us a review this week. Please. Thank you. Please.
Be on your guard. There are older and fouler things than orcs in the deep places of the world.
All right, then, keep your secrets.
Your coming to us is as the footsteps of doom.
There are many magic rings in this world, Bilbo Baggins, and none of them should be used lightly.
She takes off her headpiece and punches a guy with it.
Right.
In Ragnarok, Loki takes off his helmet and uses
I didn't realize that
as a weapon too. Yeah,
but hers is broken. So who?
That actually is in the comics.
Yeah, I know it is.
So,
I'm just curious about that. That's awesome.
I don't know what happened there. Yeah. So, episode 3 of Loki's out, and so we're going to touch on some of the bigger points of the episode, some interesting discussion points. We got to see a lot of Sylvie this episode. Starting off with her getting that information from the TVA agent from the last episode.
The hunter that was in, that she captured or whatever.
Right, yeah. So she was in that rocks card or whatever, and we saw her using in her mind, and she made this like false memory to extract her information. I kind of got Inception vibes from that.
A lot of people have said that.
Yeah, because it's a false environment. So she was in there getting the information. And what's cool is we learned that the timekeepers are accessible via a golden elevator that goes to the top floor. Is this Willy Wonka or something? But it's interesting that we learned how you access these timekeepers. Does this mess up our theory that the timekeepers are fake, or is this just another don't look behind the curtain moment? Layer to the illusion.
We never got to the top floor to actually see that these timekeepers exist. You know, you tell everybody in the TVA that they're up on the top floor. You don't have access to it. You're not allowed to go up there.
But that's how you get there.
Mm-hmm. So that adds actually to the illusion, which is what we're talking about a minute ago. But that adds to the illusion and the mystique of it. They're on the top floor and all of that.
Inaccessible.
So I don't think it changes anything.
Okay. It seems like we're getting more indications that Sylvie really is a variant of Loki and not Enchantress herself. In some recent merchandise, she is named Sylvie Laufendotter, like Loki, Laufen's son. But the word enchant is thrown around a lot this episode. A lot. And absolutely on purpose. It could be that Marvel is kind of mashing multiple things together to create a recognizable yet fresh character. They've done this before. They bring in elements from different comics. What do you think? Is she truly a Loki variant, or is she something else? Could she be a variant, but they're using this as a way to bring in the Enchantress character into play?
That's a tough question. I want to err on the side of the comic books and Sylvie being a different character.
Mm-hmm.
But then they call her Lady Loki all throughout. You know, the TVA thinks she's a variant of Loki, all of this. So
She's
feels
got
like
the time signature of Loki.
And it does. It feels like they're mashing them together on that. I'm thrown off by the Sylvie stuff. I don't know. I guess it feels probably like it's going to be more of a mashup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think they're going to use the variant version of Loki to bring in the Enchantress character in a way, which I don't mind. The MCU does have to keep things fresh. They can't just go straight from comics, otherwise everything's predictable and boring. So I don't mind them bringing it in that way, but some indication as to what the heck's going on here, a little bit more clarification would help. We got to see a really intimate moment between Loki and Sylvie on the train. Some people mentioned that whole sequence kind of feels like Snowpiercer, like the rich.
Yeah, I haven't seen that.
It's like rich people on a train to avoid like the end of the world. And
stuff. Really? Okay.
Yeah, very similar to that, the opulent and things like that. Also, I kind of got Hunger Game vibes too. But they're sitting there in the table waiting to get to the Ark, and so naturally they end up talking, and the two talk about love and things of that nature, and it's funny because there's one part that sort of pokes fun at the line from WandaVision. Sylvie says, maybe love is hate, to which Loki responds, should probably remember that. What is it? Love is, the line he's thinking of is when Vision says to Wanda, what is grief if not love persevering? So it's kind of,
I hadn't made that connection. I heard that.
Another interesting thing about Sylvie is that, later on in the comics, she becomes a part of the Young Avengers, where Bobby and Timmy Maximoff are members.
Okay.
So they could be bringing in more connections to those characters and this young...
Like a younger version of Sylvie could be in that?
Right, or something to that effect. So there's more connections there. They're tying in the TV shows. But, they're really going to great lengths to kind of show us a really human side to these quote-unquote villains, right? I mean, we got to remember this is the Loki from Avengers. The dude's messed up, and Sylvie, we can presume she's kind of messed up, but they're really taking time to show us this intimate side to the characters. Do you think that there's a chance for redemption to these two? And what do you think about them exploring these sides of the characters?
I think that both of them could be good guys or could be redeemed. I don't think you'll ever see Loki, either version, a Lady Loki or our more traditional Loki. I don't think you'll ever see them good guys.
They're going to be the anti-hero.
They're going to be Loki, right? We've talked about it previously on episodes. Loki progresses in the main timeline to where he becomes somewhat of a good guy, but he's
still a backstabber. You
still don't trust him.
I mean, he was literally about to backstab Thanos. That's not a very courageous move.
But at the same time, I do think that they're trying to make these two characters not the bad guy at this point. And so I think that it could be a lot of fun with that. Yeah.
It's kind of giving me Ben Solo feels or vibes from like Rise of Skywalker. He was the bad guy. He was going to be the main villain, but eventually they took the time to show us his character, flesh it out, and he was eventually redeemed at the end there. So I don't mind that, but I do agree with you. I think they're still going to be their mischievous selves at the end there. But do you think that they're maybe doing this in order to bring them back into the story to become main characters that we'll see through, a while in the future? Do you think their stories are going to end here in this series?
I'm going to speculate irresponsibly right now and suggest that the Tom Hiddleston version of Loki is going to end in this series. And that Lady Loki, Sylvie, whoever she is going to continue forward in Phase 4 as the Loki character going forward,
or Enchantress character.
And it seems to me like there could be a sacrifice arc in this. Remember, our main Loki he did not experience that redemption arc that we see in Endgame or Infinity War. It was the beginning of Infinity War.
Yes, Infinity War.
With that. But he's seen it as watching it in the TVA in the main timeline, right? He watched that main timeline.
Right.
So that's that's what that is. Remember, the episode was called Glorious Purpose. Mm-hmm. He's seeing that was his glorious purpose, and he actually missed it because of all of this. And so I feel like he wants to live out, he's going to be put in a position where he's going to live out his glorious purpose. And that glorious purpose is going to be sacrifice himself in order to save Sylvie and for Sylvie to be able to go on in some way, probably because I still think the TVA is a scam. I think that the timekeepers are the wizard behind the curtain type thing. And I think that they're the bad guys in this.
Okay.
And so when that all comes out, Loki sacrifices himself to save Sylvie so Sylvie can defeat them.
Loki wants to be a good person in a way. I saw this thing on Facebook by this kind of psychologist. He saw it was, I think, in like the second episode when they're trying to find this variant. He's all excited. Loki's all excited when he's doing the salad analogy and stuff, and he gets really excited. And someone mentioned like this is actually the behavior that a lot of like neglected kids show when they get excited about something. You know, if they've been quote unquote bad for a while, but they're given something to be good at and to express themselves from, they take it and they run with it and they get really excited. And you see that in his face because he's given an outlet to be good at. And I think that's a really cool thing to bring in with this character. It shows that it may not be he's inherently bad. It's just he was told he was bad for a while. I mean, he was lied to as well, not entirely, but like he's been told he's the god of mischief for a while. And he's, a frost giant, and generally the frost giants are thought as bad. So in a way, he's behaved badly. I'm not saying that that's entirely why he is this way, but it certainly probably contributed to his thought process of things.
I think that Loki is realizing that while being lied to about who he was by Odin was probably a mistake by Odin.
Right.
He had a good life.
That's very true. Yeah.
And I think that the conversation with Sylvie, where he's realizing she's been running from the timekeeper since she was a little girl. She doesn't did you get some Return of the Jedi vibes when they were having that conversation? She's like talking about remembering her mother and just glimpses and images. Right. And I was like, holy
come on.
That's classic Return of the Jedi stuff. But he's saying, wait a second, I was all frustrated and angry and bitter and turned dark because of that. And he had a right to be upset,
but not.
Maybe his life wasn't as bad. We joked about it after the first episode. Was it, we were talking about It's a Glorious Life or It's a Wonderful Life. It's a Horrible Life.
That's the first one. Yeah. It's a horrible life.
It's a horrible life. With that, maybe it wasn't so horrible is the idea.
Right. Yeah.
With that. And he was making his own mistakes.
So it's kind of tough to tell at this point. Maybe you got a different impression from the episode. It's tough to tell if Loki still wants to help Sylvie with taking over the TVA or not. We had mentioned in our episode last week, we speculated as to whether he jumped through that portal either to stop her or to continue the mission of taking over the TVA. It's tough to tell in this episode. What do you think he's doing?
I think that he jumped through the portal because he's intrigued by her. I think that he got to the TVA and was willing to work alongside her to help do what they were doing. And that's that moment where he's offering to help her and he accuses her of lacking vision with that. But then at this point in the story, when the episode ends, I think he's fully on board with her. And I think that here's another piece of speculation. I think that's all by design. I don't think that Lamentis is real.
You're okay.
I think that we see those sequences at the beginning we talked about with the hunter where they were drinking the margaritas and she was trying to get information. She was creating the illusion, the Inception type stuff.
Right.
With that. We see that take place so that when later we find out in the next episode that Lamentis is a fraud, it's an illusion, that it's not jarring. It's like, oh my gosh, we should have noticed that.
Yeah, I saw a theory as I was researching this by some Redditor, so it's 100%.
Well, if it's on Reddit, it's true.
But the idea was that the whole episode was nothing more than an illusion projected by Sylvie to get into Loki's head, like you mentioned. She revealed while talking to Loki throughout the episode that in order to get into someone's mind, someone's strong mind, she has to put them in a situation where they have to trust her. what more trusting situation than you're about to get crushed by a planet?
It's an apocalypse taking place and we have to save ourselves.
Right. So, we see them building that trustful relationship here. And another clue is the word Lamentis literally translates from the Latin to the mind.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that.
I mean, it is in comics. This Lamentis thing is in comics, but the word does translate to the mind.
Do you think that from the time they got to Lamentis, that was when the illusion began, or that the illusion began after the train sequence where he's drinking and it's like a dream and suddenly that's when it took place? Because that's when the device gets destroyed after that. And so the device being destroyed is probably, what do you think about that?
No, I think the entire excursion there is a illusion. Because, why would she provide the illusion if there's no way for them to get off the planet? So I think what happened is while they were in the TVA and they were fighting and stuff, she controlled his mind or whatever. They dropped and she created that whole illusion to get his trust.
What about this? This is where I'm going.
Okay.
I'm amending my theory, and this is what happened. Okay. I'm claiming it. Mark it.
Name it, claim it. Is that what we're doing here?
Right now, this is what happened.
Okay.
They get to Lamentis.
Mm-hmm.
He's asking her about the mind stuff and how she does it. That's when she explains all of this. And he's like, you learned that all yourself. And she's teaching him. She's explaining it. She falls asleep on the train.
Okay.
When she wakes up, he's drunk and dancing and all of this.
He's got the violin player.
He's the one creating the illusion now.
He figured it out.
He's using it on her at this point in order to control everything.
That would make more sense, because I was trying to think as I was reading this theory. I'm like, why does she need to get into his mind? What information does he have that she could use? It makes sense to get to the agent. She's got to figure out where the timekeepers are, but she has no real reason to. What does she need from this Loki? It does make sense for the other Loki to
which would make this a lot more fun if Loki's been the one that twisted it there.
I agree. I like that. And that would prove that he's the more powerful variant at that point.
Yeah, I like that.
I like that a lot.
All right, that's what's happening.
Okay, sounds good.
I've decided.
Another thing we learned is that everyone in the TVA, all of the agents, were past variants. They were not actually created by the timekeepers, as Miss Minutes and Mobius claim. How does this change things? And does this mean that maybe our Loki variant could actually become an agent for the TVA?
Well, if one of them gets killed, what is that? Is that what happens with the resets? That's what I'm wondering about, is when they reset them.
Like the pruning thing?
When they prune them, we think that they were killed, right?
Right.
What if they're not? What if they're reset and they're sent and they become TVA agents, which explains why Mobius has memories from the past and all of that, that type of stuff, or seems to have this, we would think it's memories from the past now. But, I think that the whole thing with these people being deceived, everything is a lie at the TVA.
So you don't think Mobius was lying? You think he genuinely believes?
Oh, I think he totally believes it. Mm. I think that he's been brainwashed like everybody else. I think Judge Renslayer knows what's going on.
Yeah.
But I think that everybody, and I think Judge Renslayer is working for Kang. And that's where this whole
And this is how he's controlling the timeline.
Yep.
So everybody is brainwashed into thinking this.
And then Mephisto shows up.
Oh, yes, because you got to have a Mephisto theory. So everybody is brainwashed into thinking that they were created by the timekeepers. The timekeepers are not real. Renslayer has this all set up. She's doing this for Kang in order for Kang to control the timeline, right? Mm-hmm. Now that the timeline's completely screwed up, it's going to reveal, or Kang's plan is going to unravel, and so
we're gonna have a multiverse of madness.
And so begins the next phase of the MCU.
Yep.
Ooh. We just
unlocked the phase 4 of the MCU.
See, it takes two of us though to get one truth bomb that Nathan would come up with.
That's exactly. Nate would have been like, he's like tech, right?
He's like, you guys didn't figure this out already?
Didn't already know this,
right? So sadly, We're already halfway through the series. But if the second half is anything like the first, we should be ready to see some pretty amazing stuff. And with our theories, I think it can be a lot of fun.
I think we're right.
I think we're on the nose. There's still lots of loose ends to tie up, though, so be sure to stay tuned to see what happens.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. All right. Anything else you guys want to talk about?
Anything else?
Sam, this is you. Yeah, we're all off. We're all off this week. You guys love us. We don't care.
Yeah, I mean, there was a new trailer for Shang-Chi.
Yeah.
That came out.
What'd you think about that?
I think it looks like a lot of fun. It looks like a great martial arts film, but I did not get the Marvel feel from it, which is weird because usually I get Marvel feels from things, but this feels very different. Because it is along those martial arts things. Maybe they can bring it in more. They did bring in Abomination there, which is cool. They're finally referencing that again.
I think that I understand where you're coming from to an extent, but I did get that Marvel feel watching it. And I did because you see magic, you see dragons, you see Abomination, you see
the 10 Rings.
The 10 Rings.
Which I'm still disappointed they haven't brought back in the actual Mandarin.
It could happen. Maybe his dad is the Mandarin.
His name is like Wenwu or something.
But the Mandarin is a title.
Okay. All right.
So, well, we may find that out. Was it Wong was with Abomination?
Wong?
In that ring, yeah.
Like from Doctor Strange?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, there he is. I've had the picture actually up right now. In the ring.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's another. I like that. Another tie. Yeah, that is totally him.
So now you're bringing in. You got Abomination from the old Hulk.
You got
stuff.
Doctor Strange.
You got Doctor Strange stuff.
They can bring in some
here.
Iron Man connections to an extent with the 10
Rings
Mandarin thing. Yeah.
The idea.
I also like how they changed the 10 rings, so they're not actual like finger rings; they're like the arm ones. It's a cool twist. I like that. It is
a cool twist. Yeah, I had a lot of fun. We got our first glimpse of the new super suits for Shazam.
Yeah, go Power Rangers.
And a new the Mary from Shazam. It's a different actress.
Oh, I didn't see that. No.
Anyway.
Yeah, it looks good. I'm excited for it.
I love it. I mean, they kind of taken the sort of the overstuffed padding shirt stuff out of them, and
it's a little more natural.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Shazam already. We saw Zachary Levi's Shazam costume before this, but now we see the rest of them. It looks a lot.
Yeah, and I'm glad it's going to be the whole team.
Yeah, I'm super excited about that. So that'll do it. Well, thanks for listening to Tatooine Sons of Pop Culture podcast. If you had a good time listening, please share this with your friends on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I don't know if you want to use smoke signals, you can do that.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. And of course, this show is only a small part of the Tatooine Sons world. So be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter, like Dad said.
Well, if you and then share it.
And we're still working on it, but eventually you can get it up. All the latest pop culture news on TatooineSons.com.
Yeah, and don't forget to follow the show on your podcast app so you don't miss our next episode. And then again, remember, if you drop us a review on Podchaser, we're going to make a donation in your honor to one child, and that will help a child living in extreme poverty. So please take 30 seconds to make an impact on a child's life. That would mean the world to us. And then make sure you join us next week. We're going to give our reactions to the next Bad Batch episode. Sam's going to give us a preview or a review of episode 4 of Loki. BB Nate will be back and he will give us his full review without being in pain. Couldn't let it. There was no way I was going to ask him to try to describe his enthusiasm over the long Halloween. Fully medicated and swollen to where he can't even move his
imagine the headphones wouldn't feel good on his cheeks either.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, so he's not doing that. He'll come back next week and do that. Next week on Thursday night, July 1st, I'll be doing Pop Culture Trivia Challenge at the Island Wings Company in
Just
Daphne.
Go for the ranch. Their ranch is amazing and
their wings. Yeah, so come on out if you're in the lower Alabama area. Come out and see us on that. So anything else you want to say?
May the force be with you.
I'll say it for BB Nate. May the force be with you.
May the force be with you always.
This party's over.
I like that Wookiee.
Don't get technical with me.
Join, please.
Yep, yep.